I'd like to introduce Johnny Hughes. He graduated with a GED from Hyde Park High School right here in Chicago. He was a qualified parachutist in the Army. He got his accounting diploma from LaSalle and then his CPA certificate. He started working as a self-employed independent contractor and then went on to become a CEO, a CFO, a corporate director, a trustee, and also worked with private charitable foundations as a philanthropist. Some of his awards that he's won excuse me, have included National Best Supporter of Entrepreneurship for Inc. magazine, the National Retailer Entrepreneur of the Year Award, and the Lifetime Achievement in Entrepreneurship Award from DePaul. Additionally, the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization Hall of Fame he was inducted into in 2003. Without further ado, I'd like to bring him to the stage. He's going to be a great speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you for attending. You know I am. You've seen the history in the book. I've never missed one of these conferences, and I think the enthusiasm I see today maybe tops all of the conferences. You should be congratulated. You have spirit, you have hope, you have tenacity, and you will do what you're setting out to do. Don't quit and never give up, as the Winston Churchill was quoted as saying. When I speak, I don't really write them. I have to see the audience and get after them. So sometimes it's a yelling, sometimes it's a scolding, and sometimes it's just a lot of fun. But I want to start off with a music lesson that I think Willie Nelson meant to write about entrepreneurs, and it's in fun now, so remember that. When he wrote, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. And he talks about what I call entrepreneurs. I live in the mountains of northern New Mexico. And this entrepreneur likes smoky old pool rooms and cool mornings, warm puppy dogs, children, ladies of the night. Don't tell my wife that. Those that don't know us won't like us, and those that do won't always know just how to take us. And our pride won't let us explain our entrepreneurial ways. So that's a music lesson, and I'm going to also give a history lesson. It's going to be what I think are some of the highlights over the past 30 years that are worth bringing up, because there's pathos in some and there's gladness in others, but I think it gives you the breadth and depth of what this is all about. And so I'll start in the beginning in the early 80s when we awarded Michael Dell the top prize for doing $1 million putting computer parts together in his dormitory room, and he won first place. After that, I don't know if she's in the audience, but Evelyn Nichols. It always seems when I come here, she's always 12 years older than I am. I never catch up, and I never will. But most of you have probably heard her. She's a great person, and we're fortunate to have her with us. Then there's Ken Hendricks, who started ABC Roofing Company, metal roofing, who was a roofer himself and started a business, and unfortunately he died at age 61 because he fell through a roof, a canvas roof with no support, and he struck his head on the concrete. And he was a great guy, and we were fortunate to know him. After that comes Jeff Sandifer, who right now is changing entrepreneur education, starting the Acton Institute, the Acton School of MBE, a one-year course in getting a master's in business entrepreneurship in Austin, Texas. He made a lot of money out of energy, and fortunately still does. but he and his wife are creating a whole school built around K through who knows where on self-employment. And just think, there's probably 330 million people in the United States. Of those, the workforce is probably around 200 million. And of the 200 million, there's probably 30 million that are self-employed. And of those self-employed, there's probably 20 million who are sole proprietors. In other words, working by themselves and using other independent contractors. Our goal is to create at least a 100-person split. Just think, if we could increase from 30 million to 100 million self-employed people thinking for themselves without limitation in free markets, doing what they want to do, doing what they love to do, and working night and day, 327, 365, we would never have these kind of problems. And while I'm on the government, and while being partisan, it just occurs to me, and I've explained this to everyone that's asked for funding, there's three things you guys can do and ladies can do to go back to Congress and change the whole thing overnight. Number one, let corporations pay all that cash that they've got out in dividends to the stockholders, but they can deduct it for tax purposes. Right now, corporations cannot deduct dividends. They can deduct interest payments, but they can't deduct dividends. Just think of all that cash, a record amount of cash now in the hands of those corporations, so much that they're buying back their own stock. Just think, if we could do something to encourage them to pay that out to the pension plans, the retirement plans, and the investors, what that would mean. Number two, I was around in 1935 when Social Security was created. It was only supposed to be 1/3 of a three-legged stool, private savings 1/3, and private pensions the other third. Today, too often it's the total stool with one leg, and no wonder it can't stand up. So let's face it, regardless of what you think, it's here to stay. And to scare elderly people with the threat that it might be taken is a terrorist act. And I think I do know what terrorist acts are. Just think, to scare people, it's like punching a baby in the mouth. So let's tax all their earnings. Don't put a limit of $100,000. Just tax it. We're lucky we can pay it. Forget about raising the taxes on the 1% or 2% or whatever it is. Just let them pay the Social Security tax. The program is here, everybody shares it, and write it fairly. And then finally, let's demand that the Internal Revenue Service eliminate all laws and regulations regarding entrepreneurs and self-employed people. I don't care whether they don't pay taxes on that money or not. They're going to spend it, they're going to create jobs, and one way or another the nation is going to benefit. We don't have to be giving all of our money to the government so they can practice all the socialism that they want to practice. And I'm very pleased that you're plotting. I'm very pleased that I live in a country where I can say that without fear, and I don't think I'd be scared anyway. I've been a life member for the NRA, and every once in a while I get a call from them trying to scare me into thinking they're going to take my guns. Bring it on. After Jeff Sandifer comes a lady that we just realized, because we were updated on her career. She's 32. Her father was Mexican, her mother was Italian. So when we met her, she was Ana Maria Padilla. That's a great name. And now, because they separated, she's Anna Maria Cagnanelli. That's a great name. But about 10 years ago, I got a call from the FBI. Now, it's not unique for me because the way I am, they do want to check me once in a while. But I called Mike Hennessy, my son-in-law and our great leader, and I said, what do you think? He said, well, check them out. So I did and made them prove that they were the FBI. And then they wanted to come up to then talk about a 22-year-old young lady who's the youngest PhD music graduate from the University of Notre Dame in history in her 20s when she achieved that. She didn't finish high school because she got fed up with the gangs. So she finished high school by mail through American Home, which is a great idea, by the way. And then went to university at St. Mary's in California, top in her class valedictorian. We just got an email that she broadcast. I guess that's what they do. I'm not a techie. And what happened for the FBI, she was applying to go into the military for military intelligence, spying. She had been in a terrible automobile accident and disfigured the entire right side of her face. She had a big contract with a studio in Hollywood because she was an extremely good harpist and flamenco guitarist. And she's spoken at our conferences here and others and played. And she has a great voice. It's like the voice of a bell in a dome, if you know what I mean. It just is a boom. Did I hit the right note? Got to stop taking that cortisone. But anyway, she became a spy in the Middle East. And she got in the middle of the desert, but close enough to the villages where the troops had to go in and see who's who. And she sang an aria, which I don't want to read from the paper, so I just have to convince you. The aria was created at the end of World War II. That if you sang it, it required a response from a certain person. I don't know if Jerry Gustafson is here or not, but he knows all about the wording. I can't even say some of the words that guy knows. But anyway, it required someone to go into the bell chapter and respond. And so she'd sing her aria and then wait, and the troops would wait. And then came a response. And that told you there were sympathizers in the village, and the troops went in. Out there alone, in the Middle East, with gun-happy people, terrorists, and they didn't plug her. That's a story. And that's the kind of young people we have, including yourselves. It's just very encouraging to see. On the other side was a professor, Cindy Iannarelli. I'd probably known her 30 years. And 3 years ago, she was murdered in India. And those are the downsides. But our adventurous attitudes take us there. We pay our money, we take the risks, and we get the rewards. And that's what we want. So that's a brief history lesson, and it doesn't include all the people it ought to, but it just gives you a taste, I think, of what this conference accomplishes. It's no more, like Jack DeBoer said, the end goal is not the money, at least not for everybody. And so you have to think more about the legacies in society and what you're achieving and what you're leaving. And we're going to get to that in our breakout session more. But I'd just like to have all the professors, whether they're our professors that we funded or others, to just stand. All of them. There's Jose from Puerto Rico. There's Jerry Hills from UIC, our co-founder. Amongst you are the legends of entrepreneurship education who had the courage to take on that level of education. And after 30 years, I think it is an accepted discipline in academia, right? I never finished high school, what the hell do I know? But the GI Bill, probably after World War II, where I was, next to winning that war, the GI Bill was probably the most important thing of that century. Because just 3 years ago, I earned a doctor's from DePaul University. And it's in humane letters, which I think is right down my alley. And just recently I received another, at age 85, another degree, because the American Institute of CAs is trying to go global with their standards. And so CPA's equivalent outside the US are called chartered accountants. And to work the compromise, we do have a classification now, CGMA, Chartered Global Management Accountants. So there is hope for me still. Anyway, we've introduced the professors. As I say, talk about me is in the book. I'm glad I've been able to participate. It just discourages me to hear people say, well, if you don't finish high school, you might as well take your life, or the equivalency of it. Those older people like that need help. And finally, to the cadre of Katie and her staff, and all the help you've done to bring this organization together and to conduct these sessions. And it probably is a little like herding cats, if that's what they say. And she's done a wonderful job. And to the staff of the Coleman Foundation, all of you that are here, Michael, our leader, Michael Hennessy, please stand. Rosa, if she's here, Clark, if he's here, Trevor Davies, if he's here, and if I'm missing anybody, and then finally, as Jack DeBoer said, family is the legacy, and Mike's my son-in-law, and my two grandsons. That's great. Adios.